Live for the Pines, your favorite East Texas podcast, coming at you live tonight, episode 86. I know it's been a while. We haven't had a coach on in a minute. We've been busy, got a lot of stuff going on, football season kicking off, but I'm glad to have my man Eli Reinhart back on the show. How are you doing tonight, Coach?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on again, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come on. And man, it's been great to see this show continue to grow, and the amount of coaches that you had on this off season was awesome to jump on and listen to some of the interviews. It's been great.
Well, Coach Reinhart, we appreciate that, but I want to say something. You came on here the first time as an OC. You're back as a head coach. What's it like being a head coach now?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of different things, that you prepare for as a coordinator, thinking about getting a head coaching job, and then you finally get that opportunity, and there's a whole bunch of things that are a lot different than how you may think it is. There's a lot more administrative jobs, obviously, that come along with it. Stepping outside of the classroom and things like that, but there's a lot of responsibility within the football program that was once taken care of by your head coach. That I was fortunate to work for a great head coach at North Crowley with Coach Gates, and Coach Gates had everything organized and ready for us, and now everyone's looking at me to have that plan and have that organization and have our kids prepared for everything that we do, practice, travel, game day, things like that. So there's a lot more of an undertaking, and it's been an adjustment period, but feel like a lot more comfort now, just being in here a couple of weeks and getting a little bit more settled down and kind of finding a rhythm in this deal.
That's great. I want to ask you something. You kind of touched on it, but getting to work under somebody like Coach Gates and being a powerhouse like North Crowley, how much did that prepare you for this task? You got to see how he did it, and you said he did a great job and all those things, but you got to see the ins and outs of a lot that a lot of people don't get to see. From the playoff run to the state championship and all those things. He kind of prepared you for this role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one, just coming in, Coach Gates always begins with the end in mind in everything that we did. It was huge for me to come in and learn from him because he was a first-year head coach as well when we first got there. So learning about all the things that you have to know as a first-year head coach that we went through, and just finding ways to make sure that I'm doing the things that we need to be doing, that we were doing there, taking care of things, making sure that, culture-wise or program-wise, there's standards that are expressed and things that are non-negotiable for us. But, Coach Gates, is super forward-thinking about, what he wants out of coaches and what coaches want out of him and how he can help advance you to the next level. So he knew I always had aspirations to be a head coach, didn't know when it was going to happen, but always provided me with opportunities to learn, which are, super vital for me to be in this position. But yes, I think, some of the things that I learned in those moments working for him and just being at North Crowley is just being prepared for the big moment, the big games, and some of the big plays. And, everything feels a little bit less, as high, emotion as some of these situations are, being a first-year head coach, being in a new district, being in a new situation. Having that experience in big moments and big games kind of calms me a little bit for just to tell myself sometimes, like, you've been here before, you know what this is like, and you know what you need to do to attack this and do it at a high level.
Yeah, I know it wasn't easy for you leaving something that you helped build over there, and your guys that you had over there. When we had you on here last time, it was after the state championship run, and you were so excited to get prepared for this season with North Crowley, and then what led you to Hutto? What stood out about this job? Hutto, and people don't know, they were once a football powerhouse. When you talked about football in y'all's area, over Central Texas area, you threw Hutto in there, and then you start popping up all these schools around, in your district now, Vandergrift and many more. What stood out to you that personally hooked you on this gig?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is the tradition that has been here and a desire to win and a desire to, excel in all areas. Athletics is obviously, through our superintendent, Miss Netherland, is really important to our district. Our AD feels the same way, Coach Compton, who stepped into the AD role. We want our kids to have the best experience possible, and it is expressed, I think, in every way by our administration, which I think in today's world is vitally important. For young coaches looking for head coaching jobs is just like, how much does the administration care? How much is the administration going to support you for what you're trying to do? Because some places it's not like this, everywhere. Where everyone kind of has a piece and wants to be invested in your athletic program success. So that was a big part of it, and a place that has tradition, has had success, was a big part of looking at this job and being comfortable taking it. And then, of course, having some players, I think, was really important. Doing some research and seeing the roster and feeling comfortable with the amount of playmakers that we had on both sides of the ball, and feeling like it was a place that could be successful and could sustain success as well.
Well, I got ears everywhere in the Texas high school football world now. And, back in the summer, I got a phone call. Somebody that was in College Station when y'all had that 7-on-7 tournament up there. And he was like, man, Hutto's going to be the real deal. If they can stay vertical like they did, because y'all played against North Carolina in that game. And I know it was a tough loss for you. That's a game you want to win. You got mutual respect there on both sides. The kids, great relationships on both sides, but you still want to win that ball game with your kids. And I got a phone call, and he was like, yeah, they're vertical, they're great, receiver they got, yada, yada, this, that, young receiver, and all this, and that. I'm just hearing it, and I'm like, man, I got to get, in touch with Eli. And, Saturday I'm headed to Austin to watch the Horns play, and I look up, and I'm in Hutto, Texas, and I take a picture of the water tower, and I send you a picture, and we connect right there, and we had to make this happen. But, you were dealt some great cards where you're at, but, like you said, though, people don't realize how big important administration is. And I didn't realize that until I got, closer to Texas, closer to the show at Texas high school football and stuff. A great administration is the number one key to being successful as an athletic program, especially as a football program. If you have administrators that are not supportive of athletics, don't want to see their football program succeed and all those things, it's hard to win. You have to work on the same schedule as far as with kids and everything else, budgets and everything.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it isn't necessarily, some people won't directly, come out and say that, they don't support athletics, but it's just like, isn't necessarily as big of a priority, right? Like it kind of falls on the back burner in some areas. And, and then there's other places where it is vitally important. Like our superintendent believes in the importance of athletics to the educational process for our student athletes, not only for just our school in general, but our overall school culture and community, like everything. Like athletics in general, not just football, are incredibly important to success for better student outcomes. It really makes a difference in seeing it firsthand. How important athletics is to kids graduating, kids going through all 4 years of high school, kids being here every single day and passing classes and doing all those things. Like there's a bigger picture to all of it, and there's places that get it, and then there's other places that it may not be the first thing that is a priority to them. But hopefully, as programs grow and success continues to build, all over the place, that administration starts to value all over the state the importance of athletics when it comes to just the educational world.
Man, I hate to say this, but a lot of schools, well, a lot of people in general don't realize you lose a lot of these kids when they don't have, the sport academically. Football, baseball, soccer, volleyball, all those sports, everything out there that kids participate in, UIL and everything, it gives a lot of these kids a reason to want to have good grades, because they realize, especially if you're a talented athlete, without these grades, you can't go to the next level. Firsthand, I'm sure you've seen it happen. So many kids with D1 potential don't realize you have to be NCAA qualified, and it's important. And it takes a great administration and a great coaching staff to make sure you're on top of those things.
Yes, it really does. And, building programs and everything like that is just, obviously the importance of getting to the next level. That's everyone's main goal. But I think a huge thing for us, over the years, North Crowley, and we want to do the same things here. Is like understanding like if you don't make it to the next level, the things that you learn in our program, the things that you learn throughout football, through athletic programs, will set you up with the discipline that you need to be successful in life. Whether it's something simple as waking up and being on time, those are not the easiest things to do in the world, especially when you get to post high school and you don't have someone, hitting you up or hitting your parents up about like, where's so and so? Are they going to be here yet? Like, those are some of the things that are values that, as simple as they are, we hope are instilled within our kids when they leave our program. So not only just building Division I athletes to building kids that move on to the next level, but just trying to raise and continue to grow just all student athletes and just their personal lives and uh, betterment of society when they leave our program. We hope that, the kids learn something from our program outside of just X's and O's.
No, that's true, man. And I think, it's something y'all are doing a great job at. I want to ask you something. Where does the hippo come into place in Hutto?
Yeah, so it's I got to get the exact details a little bit more, but basically, I mean, a long time ago, there was a circus that was coming through town, and I believe that however they were transporting a hippo, got kind of held up, and they ended up having to leave the hippo in Hutto, and I'm pretty sure that is kind of the main part of the story, is that there was a hippo left in Hutto, and that kind of like, I mean, took the city and took this area by storm. And now everything's hippos. The one thing that I think is really cool, we're a multi middle school, like a multi feeder type district, but all of our programs are hippos. So, when they get to the next level, they get to high school, a lot of places, the middle schools have different mascots for each school. When you come here, everyone's a hippo. And that way, it just kind of, understands when you get to that next level, we're all part of one team and one program going forward. So it's definitely, there's definitely more to the story. I got to get a little bit more familiar, but that's just kind of the general background that I've heard from people about the hippo.
For some reason, I feel like I've heard that story, and I don't know why. But it's it just a story about a hippo sticks out, and I don't know why, but I feel like I've heard that. Um, Eli, I want to ask you something. What stands out the most from the time you got to Hutto to now? Like, with the kids buying in and everything and trusting the process, what has stood out the most to you?
Yeah, it's the work ethic of the kids has been great. It's something that when you first get in, you're not 100% sure how kids are going to react to something that is new, something that is definitely different. And our kids have been, I mean, great. It's been awesome. Just the things that we're asking them to do, the things that we're expecting of them, they're understanding it and they're running with it. We didn't get off to the best start in the first week and we really struggled, but I think our kids really buckled down and have tightened up over these last 3 weeks and then including this bye week. But our team each week has continued to grow. So I think the process and the things that we're looking to continue to improve are showing up week to week. So that has been something that has been super exciting for us. And then also, just exciting for the future because we can continue to build and grow not only in the future, but for the rest of the season. I think we keep getting better each week, which is, vitally important for us to continue to do that to compete in this district.
Well, you look at your district and you see the Cedar Parks, you see the Vandergrifts. It's not a slouch of a district. It's some good ball teams in that district. Is this y'all's first year in that district? You said.
This will be the second year because this is the second year of the realignment.
Okay. A lot of these schools are an arm reach. You can get there 25, 30-minute bus ride. It's not far at all. A lot of these teams have a lot of history amongst each other. The kids know each other. All that goes into play. But for you, what sticks out the most about coming into this district? Learning everybody, learning the kids, learning the coaches, learning about the teams, all that. That's a full-time job getting to know all that.
Yeah, it's a really, we have a big district, so we only play two non-district games, and then we're right into it. So The one thing that you really feel, because I was in the opposite at North Raleigh where we had 4 non-district games. So the biggest thing is you feel pressure every single week. Everyone in this district can compete. Everyone's got athletes. Everyone has talent on both sides of the ball, and they have some really good coaches to go along with it. So every week is a challenge. Every week is a battle. And being in a district that is this big, you can't really afford slip ups, or you're going to end up losing your ability to control your own destiny. Right now, we have the good fortune of controlling our own destiny, and that's something we preach to the kids because there's been some crazy tiebreaker situations over the years in this kind of Austin Round Rock area district, whether we were in it or not. But we want to make sure that we're controlling what we can control and we're not having to rely on other people to beat other teams so that we can, slip into the right spots. We want to make sure as much as we can control what we can control by going out Thursday or Friday nights and competing to our best ability and trying to get wins. But this district's definitely been challenging. I believe I'm one of 3 new head coaches in this district. So getting familiar with coaches coming from different schools and different backgrounds, and then obviously getting familiar with the ones that have been here and been established. So, definitely a lot of research, and week to week, you're just trying to keep up with what everyone's doing and just hope to find an edge when you guys, when you have an opportunity to finally play them.
Yeah. But that's a lot of work. I know it's a lot of work. How important is this bye week? Getting kids healthy, getting prepared for the rest of this district. How important is this bye week? And I know it's much needed. I know your coaching staff's we're blessed to have it. They finally get a small break, but it's not really a break because next week you're back at it.
Yeah, this week was a great opportunity for us to kind of go back to basics and, kind of like a lot of people do is kind of hit things that, some fundamental things, making sure, we lowered the tempo a little bit, but we still were practicing, getting after it. But, we found some time to allow our kids to get a little bit of rest, because those kids have really been getting after it since the first week of August. So, an opportunity to kind of rest and be able to kind of refocus, recharge, and just get re-energized for this back half of the season has been a big focus for this week. But the bye week in general is I think, vitally important, and it's great to have. We've definitely getting some kids back from injury. We're not necessarily getting anyone back that hasn't been playing, but we're getting some guys back that haven't been fully healthy in these first 4 games. So we got a couple guys that are coming out of their clubs. We have a couple guys that have just been banged up over the last couple of weeks that we really need, working at full strength as we get into the bulk of this district schedule coming up.
Yeah, and if anybody knows, everybody has a target on you. You had a target last year for sure, but you have an even bigger target this year because you're the chief of the program this year. You're the new guy on the block. Nobody wants to lose to the new guy. Everybody wants to beat the new guy, but you have to prepare your kids, your staff, even harder because it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, it really doesn't, and like I said, this district schedule sets up, it's really difficult. We don't have an easy game by any means left on our schedule. Each week is going to be a challenge. And if you've seen kind of our standings, like there's been a lot of teams beating each other right now. So it could be, a week to week. Could be as big of a game as possible from week to week, depending upon, how other results go. But like I said, the focus is on controlling our own destiny. And doing things so that we don't have to rely on anybody else. But it definitely feels like we definitely have a target on our back, and we're excited about opportunities to continue to go attack these challenges week by week. We have a great group of seniors that have been in this program, obviously going on their 4th year, that have been really close. But haven't necessarily reached kind of that what they feel like their full potential is. They've lost some really close games over the years. Last year, lost 4 games in the 4th quarter last year. And when you're right there and you can taste it, I think that makes our kids even hungrier. So this senior class is really excited and just really thankful for those guys and excited for them to be back in these big moments and have another opportunity, to go get after it and try to secure a playoff spot and, see where everything else lands.
Yeah. And like you said, you lost 4 games last year by, what'd you say, four points?
Yeah, they were leading in the fourth quarter in 4 different games last year. So right down to the wire, having the lead in the fourth quarter, and weren't able to sustain for whatever reason. So we're definitely they're definitely been in those moments. They've been in the big games. It's like it's that closing time that we got to get right. And just find ways to win. I tell our coaches, as much as my role was, being an offense coordinator, you want to score as many points every week. Still being a play calling head coach, you know, I don't really care what the score is as long as we have more points than the other team. Obviously, I'm going to be frustrated if we don't have a great performance on offense, but ultimately, if we have more points than the other team, I'm going to celebrate it and be excited because, man, winning is hard. Winning is hard, so hard that you can't take it for granted. And I think every opportunity that you get a chance to win a game, you should enjoy it because it doesn't come easy, and you never know when your next one is going to be. So. We've definitely enjoyed our wins, and I think it's just made this group want to work even harder each week to try to earn more wins.
No, that's all facts right there. That's, like you say, these kids got a taste of winning. Once you get a taste of winning in your mouth, or you get that, especially when you're right there at winning, these kids, they want to win. They want to do that. But it takes somebody that's wanting to win as just as much as they want to in charge, and, preparing them for these weeks. And, one thing I've learned this year, getting to be around our program a little closer, you don't understand people don't understand how much work coaches put in to go win these big games. From the late nights on Saturdays and Fridays to Sundays. It's a full-time grind during football season, and y'all don't want to be up there all day. You got things you want to do in your personal life, but you know what it takes to make sure that you're giving these kids every potential to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that is something that is definitely missed, by a lot of people is like, you know, there's so much work that the people don't necessarily understand, like you said, the weekend work, the weekly work, but also, having to go teach kids all day in the midst of all that. And then, morning practice, teach all day, go to freshman practice, and then, minimum, guys are getting home, closer to 6 o'clock, later than that most days during the week. And then it's right back up, in a staff meeting at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. So it's a full-time job, and there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of preparation that comes with it. There's not a staff in the country that is preparing to lose games, or wants to call bad plays, or wants to line up bad on defense, or isn't paying attention to, special teams in the way that they should. It's just, sometimes it's a Jimmy's and Joe's things week to week, but, other times, it comes down to performance, both as coaches, but also on the field performance as well. And we hope to prepare our kids as much as possible and put them in positions to have a chance to be successful. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But the preparation, it's a lot of work. And, you know, I may sound like I'm complaining about it, but that is completely not the case. This is what I love to do and love to be a part of, and I know our staff feels the same way. So it's just kind of the business of how it is. You get a lot of criticism when things aren't going well, and you may even get some when things are going right. But we do it for the kids and our love for the game. That's my biggest thing, and staying grounded to that is, we're here for a reason, and I do this because I love the game and I love being around kids and having an opportunity to impact their lives and just do it through the vehicle of football, which has been so important to my life growing up and continues to be, day by day.
Has the family in Michigan, they got out and made a game yet?
Yeah, they were able to make it to the first game, and like I said, we didn't perform too well in the first game. My dad gave me a little hell about how we came out in that first one, but
Yeah,
you know,
your dad's a football coach, so he knows.
Yeah, my dad's very humble about his team, but he's got, smaller school football up there. But this team's like number two in the state right now, and is a legitimate state title contender. And he's got a great group. So, I'm excited to see him. It'd be kind of a storybook year or last 2 years for us. For me to win a state championship last year and have him there, and barring anything crazy, me being there right alongside him, hopefully this year as he hopefully can put this thing across the line and go try to win a state championship this year.
Well, that's great, Eli. Like I said, I thank you for coming on the show this week. I know it's a bye week and you're busy as can be, so we're going to get you out of here. But thank you for taking the time to come on Live for the Pines. I hope what we're doing is positive for Texas high school football. We're definitely trying to push the right message and do the right thing for it. So we appreciate you always supporting us and coming on the show. Thank you again. Wish you nothing but the best of luck this year. Hope you have a healthy, successful season, and I hope the Hutto Hippos can get back in that playoff race and have a chance to make it to Jerry World.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Eli. We'll holler at you. Before we go, I want to give a big shout out to our guys at Zilker Belts. Use discount code PINES936 for all online orders. Receive 25% off. Eli, you're in the Austin area. They're everywhere. I think Tyler's is like 15 minutes from Hutto. We made a pit stop there when we were in town. You got to get over there and get you some Zilker. They got your colors over there. They have I think it's called the Texas Egg. It's a white and orange belt. It'll look great on Friday nights with you and your staff. Make sure to get your staff in it. Make sure to use discount code PINES936. Again, we thank you for everything. We'll holler at you.
Thank you.